Go. Originally, of course, as I said, we referred to guilds.
Right.
And that was just a survival technique.
Right.
Because they just wanted good people.
Skilled labor. I mean,
right.
That's...
It notes even in this book, there's a period of about 100 plus years where there's a lot that's unknown. How it evolved from craft masonry in the guilds to speculative masonry, as we call it today, where people were invited in based upon their standing in the community. And that doesn't mean that they had to be mayor or rich or anything, but to be good men, that they had honest upbringing, good morals, and that type of thing. So in that period, there's a lot that's unknown, and there's no clear written record of where that move was made. So when we moved into Freemason or speculative masonry, there, I guess, as it evolved and they spread out, there were more thoughts of being charitable. And even in the guilds, there's records of helping a fellow Mason, either traveling, his family. And that has always been part of the Freemason ethic. As we moved closer to the 20th century, in 1850s, 1870s, you started seeing more charitable organizations within the fraternity, specifically to help kids, to help families. Has moved out into more charitable. Shriners, obviously, is the best known, with their Shriners hospitals for children. But also, the Scottish Rite, York Rite, Eastern Star, and some of the other orders all have their charities that they work for, and they can range anywhere from the Job's Daughters Hike Fund, which is hearing impaired kids endowment fund for operations and hearing aids for kids. Others use diabetes, others muscular sclerosis, muscular dystrophy, and there's just a whole range of things. We have a Scottish Rite Learning Center in Twin Falls that helps kids with learning disabilities. We have a program that's set up through the Scottish Rite now. It's a reading program. There's a Scottish Rite Children's Hospital in Texas. York Rite has several charities under their umbrella, so to speak. And there's a scholarship program under our Grand Lodge for the youth, an essay contest. And some of the others, they're just so many that I couldn't think of all of them. Those evolved over time. When you get a group of people together, it's inevitable that you talk about, well, we're here, but what good can we do for our city, for our county, and for our state, or for just the geographical area that we live in. And as they spread, more of these national organizations also spread. Shriners started in New York City with just as a fun group. That's what they wanted to do. And as that moved along, I think over 7 to 10 years, specifically, but then, well, let's help some group, and the kids seem to be the natural choice. Everybody wants to help kids.
Right. Now, but Freemasonry is more than just being a charitable group, isn't it? I mean, it is
a lifestyle.
It can be.
I mean, it seems to me like what I've heard, and again, you hear so little, because it's usually hearsay, that there's a focus on becoming a better person too within the ranks. And
well, I've heard, and forgive my ignorance, but it's a religious group. It's a lot of different things. You hear, and it competes with, like, if you join this group, you can't be whatever Christian faith you are. There's been different things, but that's all rumor. It's all speculation. I've never really sat and talked and found out what's true and what's not true.
Well, the purpose of Blue Lodge is to make Masons. I mean, that's it, pure and simple. What it's based on, however, is the Bible, their teachings in the Bible more particularly. We are not a religious group or fraternity, if you want to call it that, but a lot of what we teach comes from the Bible. And we use several implements of Masonry to teach allegorical moral laws, or moral teachings, I should say. And so if you think about it in that way, and probably our simplest is the square. And when we say if we're going to be, we teach you to be square, it means that if we have an agreement, that we're going to be true to that agreement, just on the verge of a handshake. If we also use the plumb, and that tells us to walk uprightly before God and man. You have to have a belief in God. That's one thing that a man must have. If you don't, then any obligation that you take doesn't mean anything. You have to be an honest and true man. And we actually have...
Well, I'm not on there.
Yeah.
I want to add that Masons are required to believe in a higher power. It doesn't have to be the God of Abraham.
Right.
Okay.
Simply a higher power. There are Hindu Masons and Sikh Masons, and any individual who acknowledges a higher power over them that they answer to is eligible for Masonry.
Okay.
In the United States, it's primarily the Bible and Christianity because we are such a Christian country.
Right.
But in India,
But even that's changing.
They might have 2 or 3 or 4 different religions, faiths represented in a lodge.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
we often refer to it as a great architect of the universe, simply because you don't want to have necessarily the King James Bible.
Right.
It can also be the Quran or any other, the Torah.
The Torah.
As long...
The Gitas, if you're Hindu.
Yeah.
The Gitas.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we have actually had in our lodge a professor up at ISU in economics. And I can't think of his name offhand.
Fuad.
Yeah, Mahmoud Fuad,
Mahmoud Fuad.
who was a Mason, joined our lodge and took his obligation on his Bible from Egypt, where he was raised. And so it can be anything, as John says, as long as you have a belief in that supreme being as the one creator.
You know, one of the things that we saw recently was at the D.L. Evans Bank. There was a ceremony that you did, and for people that weren't there or weren't aware that the Masons were there, could you tell us what the purpose of that ceremony was, and the fact that you were telling us before the show that used to only be for public buildings? So,
well, Governor Evans, John Evans, and his brother Don, who are quite heavily involved in the D.L. Evans Bank, are both Masons. And I guess if you look at the broad interpretation of a public building, a bank could fit that very well because it serves the public. It's involved in the community, and it certainly does good in the community because the money doesn't all just stay with the bank. The banks traditionally, or any large business, feed some of that money back into the community through charitable contributions, through community projects and everything. And it's just simply a broader interpretation of public buildings. And that's why that came about.
okay, and what was the